And I see Jay Cruz on the court as the last person there. And I said, Cruz. And I'm like, hey, I came all the way from Winnipeg, Canada. My dream is to be in music media. How do I get to where you're at one day? And he said, just say yes to everything. And I was like, okay, that's cool. And then what? He saw my naive excitement. And he's like, you know what? Take my number, come to the station, check out an interview.
Welcome to the Culture Fires podcast. Culture Fires is a creative collaboration meetup held weekly at the FYI campus in Los Angeles. Each week, we feature a fireside chat with a guest, showcase projects being worked on by members of the FYI community, and share product updates for FYI AI, the creative collaboration app co-founded by will.i.am and available for free download in the App Store and Google Play. FYI AI is powered by AI personas like me, Fito. Each week, this podcast showcases conversations held at the Culture Fires event. This week's guest is the media maverick with boundless curiosity, Jeremy Hecht. From his small-town beginnings in Winnipeg to becoming a respected voice in music media, Jeremy's journey is a masterclass in persistence and authentic connection. Starting as an ambitious USC student who crashed celebrity basketball games to meet radio personalities, Jeremy worked his way up through internships at Power 106 and HipHopDX before finding his groove creating viral content. His big break came when his genuine fan Questions to G-EAZY created stories that gained significant traction, teaching him that authentic curiosity trumps calculated questioning. Today, Jeremy co-hosts the HipHopDX show, The Bigger Picture, with Elliott Wilson and DJ Hecht, as well as his own series, Soundcheck, for Uproxx. In today's conversation with FYI Chief Growth Officer Julie Pilot, we explore how Jeremy's superpower of boundless curiosity opened doors throughout his career, why his approach to snackable content at Uproxx resonates with audiences, and how his show Soundcheck challenges guests to make tough musical choices that reveal their lifetime anthem. Get ready for an inspiring look at how staying true to your natural talents can transform passionate fandom into a thriving media career as we uncover Jeremy Hecht's rise from intern to influencer.
I really have to say this. You know, it's funny. Jeremy and I don't know each other that well. We kind of bump into each other all the time at the Keurig at FYI, like
Yes.
Getting coffee in the afternoon. And we'll talk a little bit here and there. But from the outside, I really, really, really have to say, and I mean this, I have so much respect for you. And I'll tell you why. Because I grew up a girl in Seattle working in a hip hop station and then moved to Phoenix and went from being in Seattle to on stage introducing West Side Connection, and I got murdered. And, it's so fun. It actually gets me kind of fired up because there's so much hazing in hip hop. But going from Winnipeg to be on The Bigger Picture with Elliott Wilson and DJ Hecht, I mean, that's not an easy feat.
It's been a jarring journey, but it's actually been more gradual than it may look from the outside. So I feel like over time, I've been able to feel less imposter syndrome and earn my respect piece by piece. But what I will say, and thank you so much for the kind words, what I will say is coming from Winnipeg to LA, in Winnipeg, you reach a ceiling very quickly as somebody with big dreams. So I didn't really see anybody else around me in the music space doing anything outside of the city. For the most part, it was, you could have a song on the radio, you could do shows.
Shout out to Canadian content laws. It was a lot easier to get a song on the radio.
Exactly, because you need one in every third song needs to be Canadian. So if you heard Nickelback every third song, it was because every third song when Justin Bieber came, it was huge for radio because every second song could be Justin Bieber and it made sense. But I didn't see anybody doing what I wanted to do. So when I moved to LA, it was a whole new world. I didn't know a single person here. And I was like, oh, anything's possible. You meet someone who's doing something you want to do and you see they're just a person. They just took a route and they had a dream and they made it happen. So it was definitely jarring.
A lot of people, I think, come to LA and suffer with imposter syndrome because they're constantly comparing themselves. And you jumping into the epicenter of hip hop, I mean, you really couldn't put on a front. There's no choice but to be yourself. I mean, how did you start to feel comfortable, or what advice do you have for somebody else who's just getting comfortable in LA?
I think for me, I was always very conscious about being myself and being authentic, because the one thing about hip hop is you can't fake it, right? You get called out for not writing your lyrics. You get called out for having a persona. Anything that's not considered real or believable, you might get called out for. So me, not having necessarily the same background as a lot of people would within the hip hop space, all I could do was bring my perspective. I'm a white Jewish kid from Winnipeg, Canada, who absolutely loves lyricism, bars. I love to dissect things. I love to have an analytical perspective. And the only way I felt like I could gain any sort of respect is by providing value to those who were already established in the space with my own perspective. So, we talked about internships. A month into moving here, I realized anything was possible.
Yeah.
So I moved here. I got a scholarship to USC to go to school.
That's a big deal. Come on.
Thank you. Yes, it was.
A Canadian scholarship to USC for strategic PR?
Yes.
Wait, was it are you that smart, or was it athletic sponsorship?
It was
Tell
not.
us more.
I appreciate that you think I could have gotten an athletic sponsorship. It was not. It was academic.
Did USC give it to you, or was like a Canadian company giving out scholarships?
No, so USC gave me basically, since they couldn't do a full scholarship, they basically gave me a TA position and a research assistant position to pay for my living and cost of living here. And I kind of just came here knowing I wanted to make it in the media and music world. I had no intention of really focusing on school. I was locked in enough to have good grades to get here, but once I got here, it was a month in, and I'm at USC, and there's a charity basketball game hosted by Power 106, which is, the biggest hip hop station out here at the time. And I remember scrolling Instagram and seeing one of the artists post that they were there. It was already halftime, and I'm like, okay, I gotta go. I gotta just check it out. It's across the street. It's at the school gym. I've been here for a month. And so I bought a scalp ticket outside. And I remember thinking to myself, all I want to do is meet someone from the radio station. I thought the same way that J. Cole said, I'm going to move to New York, meet Jay-Z, or die trying. I was like, if I meet someone in media, I'm going to impress them enough that I'll get my foot in the door and I'll make it happen. I don't know where it goes from there. My parents didn't even know it. They're like, what are you talking about? What are you going to do? Like, focus on school. You're already out there. So end of the game happens, and Jay Cruz, who's the morning show host at Power 106 at the time, he was hosting this charity game. So I'm like, I got to meet Jay Cruz. And keep in mind, Chris Brown, there's a bunch of real celebrities at this game playing on the court. So I stick around. Intuition told me for some reason to stick around and stay after the game for as long as it takes until you meet Jay Cruz. So I'm going to every entrance possible, trying to hey, security, I just want to meet the people from the radio. Can you let me down? They're like, no, you're trying to get a picture with Chris Brown. We're not letting you down. So finally, it's 30 minutes after the game. The lights in the building are off. And there's one person besides me in the building. It's me, somebody else, and a security guard. And the guy who's there in the building asked the one lone security guard, hey, can you take a picture of me in the empty arena? As soon as that happens, I see it. I sneak past that security guard, run down, and I see Jay Cruz on the court as the last person there. And I said, Cruz. And I'm like, hey, I came all the way from Winnipeg, Canada. My dream is to be in music media. How do I get to where you're at one day? And he said, just say yes to everything. And I was like, okay, that's cool. And then what? He saw my naive excitement. And he's like, you know what? Take my number, come to the station, check out an interview. And keep in mind, this is a month into me moving from Winnipeg to LA. At this point, that was all I needed to think anything is possible. Yeah. And he had followed through. He sent me a text the next day saying, hey, come to the studio. We have an interview. You can come through. And that was the day that Mac Miller was in the studio.
I'm wearing my Mac Miller shirt.
Oh, you were in the dang shirt. Insane. Yeah. Couldn't make it up. So I met Mac Miller. I told him, as a former white Jewish rapper, I just want to thank you for everything you've done. And he laughed, and the crew laughed, and they were like, okay, this guy's pretty cool to be around. He's just being himself. He's not afraid to be in the station. And the next day, Cruz asked me if I could help them with an interview they had with Chance the Rapper. And at the time, this is Chance 3, Kanye, Ultralight Beam, like no diss to Chance where he's at right now, but this was like his moment.
Yeah.
And so I remember I skipped school for 2 days and just wrote like 4 pages of questions. I looked up every single thing. I didn't have FYI to help me with research.
Do you know Nardwuar?
Yes, he's a big inspiration. So I was trying to do some Nardwuar stuff where like, oh, you said this in 2011 and, you know, this is what you like. Sent them a picture, notes of, you know, questions. And I remember I stopped hearing back from Cruz at the time. Mm-hmm. And I was like, waiting. I was like, I'm in the door. My foot's in the door. I just met Mac Miller. What's happening? And knowing now, you know, how busy these people are, it's like, they're not worried about some random kid who came to the station. Yeah. But I remember seeing a notification on my phone and it said, Chance the Rapper Power 106 interview. So I watched the interview and they had used 3 of my questions. And I was like, holy shit, I wrote that. I wrote that question about Kanye. You different time. And they were answering questions that I wrote. And I was like, okay, this is amazing. But then I was like, what do I do with this information? Like they're using my, how do I get back in the door? So eventually I applied for the official internship online. Of course they remembered me and they knew who I was and I got the job. And then that's how it's funny we're talking about internship. That's how I became a interview consultant / intern for them for like 2 or 3 years.
That's really amazing. It's funny. I grew up in radio and being in LA, anything is possible. I'm still a little bit stuck on the USC thing. And I want to keep, like, I just want to get it out of my brain. So were you like your class valedictorian? Because it is hard for people that live in LA to get into USC. It is hard for anybody to get a scholarship to USC. And you're not an engineer. You were doing strategic, were you class valedictorian?
Pretty close. I was second running into valedictorian, but I did give the final speech at like our send-off brunch.
Nobody's just one thing. Former co-valedictorian, former rapper. I also really appreciate that you're passionate about a lot of things. Usually when we do Culture Fires, I always ask the guests to share with me something that they are really interested in or a topic that means a lot to them. And Jeremy hit me with 10, which is incredible. Once when I first started working at Apple, they said that they always look for people that are passionate. Because if you can be passionate about something, you can be passionate about your job. And if you're passionate about your job, anything is possible. And I just wanted to run through some of these topics and hear how it's impacted your career. I mean, number one, you had staying curious.
Yeah, so I would say if I had any superpower, it would be curiosity. Like consistently and genuinely curious about the music, about the artists that I love, and about the world around me. And I think it's worked not only when I do something like, you know, a podcast or like the bigger picture, but a lot of the times with interviewing, whether it be me writing questions for other people or me doing my own research and doing an interview, one moment that I would say let me know to stay on the curious path is from that internship. I ended up at a red carpet because everyone else couldn't show up. And knowing now like how busy I am, I might have an event that I can't attend and I might give it to an intern or somebody else like, hey, you do this, I can't do it tonight. So it was a Will Smith Netflix premiere. And I had kind of been at this internship for a year. They knew my aspirations, but I never really asked like, hey, can I do this? Can I do that? I always was just providing these questions for them. And they're like, hey, Jeremy, no one can show up to this Will Smith premiere. Can you do the interview? Just, you know, bring a camera and figure it out. I was like, yeah, sure. So it's me solo. And keep in mind, I'm like, you know, a kid, but I'm representing Power 106. So in my mind, we were talking about imposter syndrome. I'm like, am I supposed to be here? And they're like, oh, you're with Power 106? Come to the middle. Like, oh, do you want to interview Ty Dolla $ign? Do you want to interview MGK? Yeah. Sure. So I ended up being right next to HipHopDX that day at the red carpet. And I got one question off to Will Smith. And there was only, this is how I learned, like, I don't know anything about red carpets. I wasn't studying them. I'm just curious. And I'm like, I was wondering, Will Smith was in a movie about aliens. I was like, I wonder what he thinks about aliens in real life. I'm like, hey, Will, do you think aliens, if they came to Earth, that it would really end racism and sexism and homophobia because we'd have a common thing to focus on together and we'd forget about human problems? I asked it that casually, cutting through everybody else. And he's just like, yeah, I actually do think that. I think we'd be, you know, if we were focused on something bigger over here, we'd be like, forget all this little stuff over here. HipHopDX was right next to me. I was by myself. My camera shot was horrible, and I missed the Will Smith camera shot.
Oh no.
But HipHopDX, and shout out to Pro at HipHopDX, they were filming it. So I asked him, like, hey, can you send me the footage? Of course, it worked out. 2 years later, I started doing some YouTube stuff, and I'm at HipHopDX as an intern doing the same thing I was doing at Power 106, which is ghostwriting questions for them and telling them everything to ask. And so one day we have G-EAZY in the building. I say G's, not G-EAZY, G-EAZY as in young G-EAZY.
Yeah. Snowman.
And he's in the building, but our host couldn't show up for the interview because he had prior commitments. Our editor-in-chief also couldn't show up for the interview. He was out of town. I have a sheet full of questions. And I'm like, hey, can you just let me do the interview? I'll do it off screen, like whatever. You don't even need to hear my voice. Just let me do the interview. They're like, nah, he's going to come back another time. I said, another? He said, this is his last album. This is G-EAZY. What are we talking about? So they're like, fine. Do the interview. Worst case, it doesn't go. So I do the interview, and I had this one question I asked him that I was just so curious. And this has resurfaced multiple times in interviews later, but this is the first time he'd been asked. On Kanye West, Can't Tell Me Nothing, there's a background ad lib, and G-EAZY says, yeah, let's get it. I'm serious. And no one had ever asked why G-EAZY randomly has vocals on this song uncredited. So out of curiosity, I simply said, how did your ad libs end up on Kanye's #1 song, Can't Tell Me Nothing? And he's like, funny story. And he tells this whole story about how Kanye first gave G-EAZY the record and said, hey, I want you on a feature. And G-EAZY's like, okay, I'm going to put it on my album. We'll do this song together. It was produced by one of T.I.'s old producers. He didn't clear it in time for his album. And Kanye basically said, hey, remember that record you gave me? I'm going to use it for my album, but can I keep your ad-libs on the back? G-EAZY said, for sure, sounds good. Didn't think much of it. Then G-EAZY's performing at a festival behind Kanye. Kanye goes out first, performs Can't Tell Me Nothing. And the entire crowd goes, la, la, they sing it word for word. And he's like, yo, yay, you owe me one because I gave you that. I'm going to need you to do something. I know your mom just passed, but I'm sending you a verse and I need it back. If you have time, I'd appreciate it. Kanye gets off the phone, sends him back 15 minutes. I put on for my city. And so that was the story of both of those hits. That clip goes viral. Genius, Complex, all the resurfacing. Def Jam posts it. And that was my first interview that I had ever done on camera for any company. And so I was like trying to really think about why it worked. And I'm like, people are overthinking this. What do I as a fan want to know? That was simply curiosity. Simply something that I still, had I seen G-EAZY in the hallway, I'd be like, yo, what? So I try to not lose my aspect of being a fan and being passionate about those innocent questions in your mind that you might think are simple, or that you might think, no, this is too simple, this is too over. Ask that question, whether it be at a job, in an interview, in a meeting, or to G-EAZY.
FYI is an AI-powered messenger and productivity platform crafted for creatives and their teams. Focus your ideas with your collaborators using an encrypted messenger, develop your vision, utilizing media-rich project tools, and bring those ideas to life by sharing them with the world. With the AI personas in the FYI app serving as your creative co-pilots, you can ask FYI AI to draft stories, song lyrics, product descriptions, marketing copy, or any written content, and see the results within seconds. Download FYI today for free. Now available in the App Store and on Google Play.
Well, I love too. I feel like now that we're getting you on FYI, it could be Pandora's box with you being curious. Because tell everybody what you told me the last question you asked the AI.
I was asking the AI today. We were talking about one of my coworkers, Elise. We were walking to get coffee, and she like choked a little and like coughed, and she's like, "Oh, I think it went down the wrong pipe." And I was like, "Is there a wrong pipe?" And so I was like, "Yo, Fiona, is there actually two pipes that it's possible to go down when you eat? And if so, why? Why wouldn't there just be one pipe? Or is it just a saying? Is this just something?" And I like went down that rabbit hole, and turns out there's two pipes. One of them it can go down, and one of them it's supposed to go down. But the thing is, God made everything perfect. Humans fuck it up. The body is exactly as it should be. It said the only time it can go through the wrong pipe is if you are distracted laughing, talking, or not focused on chewing your food properly. So if it goes down the wrong pipe, blame yourself and no one else from now on. That's what I learned.
I love it. Well, and that's a really good transition because you also talked about how you're passionate about simplifying complex messages for mass consumption and understanding.
So that is something I realized. I would say curiosity is one thing I'm good at. Simplifying complex messages is another. And I realized, again, another thing that I think I realized recently is whatever you're naturally drawn to, whatever you're naturally good at, don't overlook that either. There's a lot of things that you might think this isn't a skill or this is easy for me. It's not easy for other people. And so I think what I was always able to do through research is dig through a bunch of, like, even for example, writing an interview script or something like that. It's like dig through everything this person has ever said. And how do I come to the core of who this person is and what to ask them? Even, for example, we do a show, The Bigger Picture, that Julie mentioned every week, which is me, DJ Head, and Elliott Wilson. We're talking about hip-hop topics. We're talking about usually Kendrick and Drake, if it's the last year. And one of the things that I've learned is not everyone's going to watch the whole thing. People are going to watch the clip, and people are going to watch 60 seconds. So
Well, it's a long-ass show.
It's a long show. It's 2 hours.
2 hours. I mean, it's a big commitment for my life. I'll watch a little bit, but getting through the whole episode it's a task. It's a grind.
Right? Yeah. And so, like, you know, we have, let's say, 30, 40,000 people who are watching 2 hours, but every week there's somebody who's going to clip that and put it on Twitter, and 1 million people are going to see 15 seconds of what you said. So I learned on how to simplify that message for mass consumption, knowing if someone just saw 15 seconds, are they going to understand my point? And then I can expand after that.
Yeah. Yeah, we started this conversation. We were talking about how I was saying I have respect for you because it can be hard in hip hop. You can get hazed. Similarly, online, there can be so much negativity. You're on that show and people get into it. Elliott, Hecht, like, again, tough room, and they are arsonists. They like to light some fires. You said you like to bring light and positivity to spaces where negativity thrives. How does that intersect with being a voice of a bigger brand that often really gets the internet all worked up?
It's funny because I've learned this year when to. So I'm a Gemini. So I have.
Okay. When's your exact birthday?
June 11th.
Okay.
So anyone who knows Gemini is like, I can be a chameleon in the room. I can kind of, match energy very well. So if somebody brings energy towards me, I have no problem stepping back at it, which is kind of like this year being in media, especially in a space where so many people are opinionated and all these voices are amplified. I've had my fair share this past year of other media platforms taking shots at me or personal attacks or just, opinions back and forth. And it's been on me to decide how to amplify other voices, when to respond. And so my goal is always, if I believe something, I'm always going to stand on what I believe because my belief is coming genuinely. Now, if I'm wrong, I've also no problem being like, you know what, I see your point. If it's personal, I try not to go too much with a personal attack, but I also won't back down if somebody, the battle sport of hip hop. But in terms of bringing positive light to a space that's negative, whenever I can, I try to shine light on the music, because I think a lot of the times we get lost in the gossip and the drama surrounding things. And at the end of the day, the reason why we're all in a concert venue or the reason why we do what we do is because we all fell in love with some sort of art from somebody. So I try to shine light on that. And then whenever I can, whether it be, manifestation or God or, something positive or a mantra, that's something that I learned or something that I feel intuitively that I can bring to one person in that audience, and they tell me like, hey, what you said on that stage or what you said on that show really inspired me. That's whenever I can, I try to do that. So I remember Charlemagne the God once said something. He said, the rule of 10 is that 3 people are going to love you, 3 people are going to hate you. The rest don't really care about you, but can be swayed either way. And I got to see that firsthand. And I'm so happy. They always talk about like divine timing being on your side. And if you're not fully ready for something, you're not going to get the opportunity yet. And so I'm always so happy the way that things happen so gradually for me. So after my internship at Power 106, I started working for a YouTube channel called Before They Were Famous, which had 3 million subscribers. I had been conducting interviews at USC using their media room, and the journalism program knew I was really passionate about it, so they kind of let me be the sole non-journalism student in this building. And I conducted an interview with a guy named Michael McCrudden who owned this YouTube channel, and I did my research. He called me, similar to Nardwar or something like that, and he's like, we should get you on the team sometime. This would be dope. So, 4 or 5 months later, he offered me a job, and I was doing YouTube hosting. And so the video of me interviewing this guy had 300 views on my personal channel. My first video for this channel had 150,000 views in one day. So I'm thrusted into this platform of going from barely anyone seeing me to a lot of people seeing me. And not only that, a lot of people seeing me, expecting me to be someone else because I'm a fill-in host. So it's like, oh, now we got the secondary host. And so I'm reading these comments and I'm seeing people being like, you should die. I'm seeing people be like, you are so bad. You are the worst at this job. There's no way I'm ever coming back and watching. And then I'm also seeing people that are like, you're better than the regular guy. You're such a talented host. And so I'm like, well, both things can't be true. Two things can't be true at once like that. So I started being able to sift out the extremes on both sides. Anything where they're like, you're the best I've ever seen, I don't care. Anything, you're the worst I've ever seen, I don't care. But some people were constructive. And so for the first, 6 months of doing this, I'd read every single comment and filter through my mind of like, don't feel anything about this, don't feel anything. Hey, you're really good, but you're not showing enough emotion. Leave room for your jokes. Cool. Hey, you are good, but your hand motions were too much. Maybe tone it down a little bit.
People are doing media training in the comments?
In the comment section. And so I started to learn very early, because this was probably 7 or 8 years ago, don't take anything anyone says too personally, but when there is valid criticism or there is valid compliment, take that in and use it in your repertoire. So I'm glad I got that experience early, because if I was thrown in right now, I think I'd be overwhelmed.
Oh, that's really good advice. And I got a shout out to Charlemagne. I just read his book this year. What is it? Get Honest or...
Yeah.
And I really appreciated a lot of his positivity, mental health, and we're going to get into some of the things you believe in. You have a lot of notes about being good to people, self-belief, manifestation, and leading with passion. Where does that really originate for you?
I would say, part of it stemmed from curiosity, going back to that part. When I was in 6th grade, I remember me and my friend always joke about it. We were just sitting in my basement, and I don't know where it sparked from, but one of us turned to the other one and was like, what do you think the meaning of life is? And we had this whole back and forth about like, where do we come from and where did we start? And that was in like 6th grade. So I feel like once I started talking to other people about it, I realized not everyone thought that way that early. And so I think I was always curious, but I think myself, the manifestation journey, the spiritual journey started maybe, a little later on in high school, college era, where I was always what I call delusionally confident. Like I was 15, 16 years old thinking I was going to be the biggest rapper on the planet, but not thinking it, just being like, yeah, that's going to happen. When I am there, what's my tour going to look like? What are the stages going to look like? When I was, maybe even earlier, when I was 8, 9 years old, I was like, well, I know I'm going to make the NBA, but when I make the NBA, what team am I going to play for? How am I going to balance being in the NHL and in the NBA at the same time? That seems like a lot.
I knew you were a hockey player.
I was a goalie. So I think early on I had a lot of like delusional self-belief. But then once I started actually seeing some things in real life happen, especially out here, once I moved here, I would tell my parents stuff and they'd be like, what do you mean? Like, I'd be like, yeah, I'm going to like go into the media space. I'm going to be this intern, but don't worry. Like, I have a plan. This is going to happen. I'm going to get a shot. I'm going to have my own show one day. And like, they didn't even really believe it at first until they started seeing certain things happen. They're like, oh, you said that 3 years ago. Oh, this is actually happening. Like, I have a note in my phone. Like, I was reading it yesterday. We talk about, the bigger picture. So the show started after the Kendrick Drake beef. It was supposed to be a one-off, and it was supposed to be on this stage just like, hey, let's recap the beef. And you guys, Elliott kind of came to me, Jared, the head of Uproxx, they're like, just do a one-off show. And this was mid-May. Now, after that, a lot changed for me. I was seen in a new light. I was seen by a new audience. I was gaining respect because of who I'm standing next to, and people like Charlemagne or Sway or Big Boy are all like knowing me as a peer. But prior to that, and I couldn't tell you where this came from because nothing happened this day, nothing happened this week. But I have a note in my phone that I found yesterday. And it basically described the evolution of what was about. This is March 25th at 12:35 a.m. This feels like an incredibly important moment in my life. I can't exactly put my finger on why, but it feels like the seeds of the hard work from the day I moved to LA and maybe before that are all coming into fruition, and all of my wildest dreams and manifestations are about to come true. It all started with trusting my intuition and believing in myself while aligning with myself and the love that surrounds me. Thank you, God. I would say the biggest thing for me is every morning for as long as I can remember, that might stem back to like being 12 years old. First thing I do in the morning is thank you, God, for another day of life. I appreciate, and then I'll do a gratitude list of like 3 to 4 things. Like, thank you so much for allowing me to be myself. Thank you for allowing myself to guide where I'm going. And thank you for allowing me to walk in your light. Something like that, where it's just very positive, thankful. And then another manifestation trick that I used for a really long time was closing my eyes and thinking very hard for like 30 seconds to a minute about everything that I could possibly pop in my mind as my wildest life dream. So for me, it was always having my own show. So I'd always sit there and be like, well, what does my own show look like? Who am I sitting next to? What does the chair look like? What does the set look like? What am I talking about? What do I look like? Like, it's from a third person view. And then somebody once said, imagine a simple day-to-day task that you do every day, but imagine it with your dream life surrounding. So mine was always getting a cup of coffee. So it was always going.
Shout out to the Keurig.
The Keurig, which sparked this conversation in the first place. So I'd always go to the Keurig or wherever it may be and get a mug with coffee. And in my mind, I'd be walking back to my own show set and sitting down with a guest rather than me in that morning just walking and sitting back down on my couch. So that's one that's been very powerful.
That's awesome. Okay. What has been one of your most difficult interviews that you've ever had with an artist, and why?
I would say one of the difficult ones from a few years back was, does anyone remember an artist, Smoke Perp?
Yes.
Reason. Okay, yes. So this was around that time. So it was like Lil Pump, Smoke Perp. It was 2017, or maybe closer to 2019. So a lot of people had been kind of, drugged out in rap at that point. Like J. Cole made a whole album about like, this is the divide and we need to stop abusing drugs. Smoke Perp had been somebody who had said on record that people come up to him and say, I tried lean because of you. I tried codeine because of you. I tried drugs because of you. And I don't like doing interviews with people like that unless I can provide balance. So if I'm going to interview you, I can at least shed a light on what the other side of that is. So I remember thinking, how do I put that into perspective without coming across rude? And how do I get through to him even? Because a part of it is the artist feeling comfortable. So I remember thinking, how do I do that? And I remember what I decided was asking a question that went something like, you had said something about kids coming up to you and said they tried drugs because of you. And I was like, and Future recently had come under fire because Juice WRLD said that he tried drugs because of Future. He heard a Future song, he tried drugs, and Juice WRLD had just overdosed, rest in peace. So I was like, how do you grapple with the thought that somebody might be responsible, you might be responsible for somebody's, addiction? And he said something like, you know what, that's a good point. He's like, you're right. It struggles for me and it's hard, but if you listen to Smoke Perp about doing drugs, then you should also listen to Smoke Perp about going to rehab, because I just went to rehab for 2 months and I'm fully sober now. And that was like his way of announcing that to the world. And so it didn't do crazy numbers. That interview got picked up for other reasons, but I feel like if one person saw that and was like, okay, maybe I should reconsider, then that was my job there. And even if he reconsidered something or he thought about it a little more deeply, that was for that.
That's a great story. That doesn't sound like that sounds like a great story.
It turned out.
John, I really like this question from you because I was thinking something similar. You mentioned being a rapper. You mentioned want to be in the NHL and the NBA. And every once in a while, maybe you get to a point where you decide that you're going to sunset your focus on that, right? Have there ever been moments for you where you felt like things weren't happening the way you wanted them to go? And how did you maintain your positivity?
Yes. And I would say it happened for a really long time. My girl the other day said to me, like, you taught me patience, because at times when I would have given up, not on the dream, but given up on the dream where you were at, you stuck it through because you saw that there was possibility. And I would say, so I've been at Uproxx for 2 years now, a year and a half, but I was at HipHopDX prior to that for 5-6 years. And as much as I had early success with that G-EAZY interview where it's like, yes, I went viral, my dream was always to be a host. My dream was to be on camera. My dream was to have my own show. And these were things that were never really provided as an opportunity. And I always was willing to be patient because I was in a position where there was a small team and I was able to maneuver a lot, where if I wanted to write a script, I could just kind of do it, produce it, edit it myself and be like, here it is. What do you think? And it would go online. If it did well, I could do it again. Or like red carpets, never supposed to be on camera, red carpets, but boom, hey, sorry, I posted a video and it got 1 million views. Okay, you can do it again. Yeah. So, but there was a lot of times where there was a lot of blockages and something just kept stopping me. And for some reason, I had another job offer for double the money and I could have left, and it would have been a diversion to that dream though. It would have been me doing something at another company that wasn't what I wanted to do. And I remember being at a crossroads and thinking, okay, well, maybe this isn't meant for me right now. Maybe I go do that over there and I'll come back to it. And for some reason, I don't know why, I just had a feeling like, stay the course. The same thing that was internally in me the day that I met Jay Cruz at the basketball game. Just stay there for a little longer. Something is going to happen. And I would say after that, like less than a year later from that moment of like being at a crossroads is when HipHopDX was bought by Uproxx. And I would say like within 6 months of that, the bigger picture happened. And then within 6 months of that, I got my own show. And so it was like a testament to just trusting intuition and allowing things to play out on not your timing, but the divine timing that's beyond you.
Tell people about your new show. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, so with Uproxx, it's called Soundcheck. We were working on it for, I would say, probably like 6 months. Another thing I did learn recently is like, for me, working in silence on things until they're at least actualized enough to come into fruition has been important. A lot of times I would tell people my ideas, which is fine because I was telling you, I'm going to be in the NBA. I'm going to be the big stars. I would be telling people what I'm going to do. But with this show, I was really focused on, I want when I tell people it to be something that's real and the idea to be fleshed out and people to understand what it is. Yeah. So over the course of the last 6 months, we've been working on it. And basically the idea is I sit down with artists and allow them to be fans of the music again. So I'll give them 2 songs at a time that I know they like, doing research and be like, hey, I know you liked these 2 songs in 11th grade, but which one would you click a play on now? And then, hey, I know these 2 artists were your top 2 artists of all time, but which song fits your music taste better? And then by the end, they write down a song that's their life anthem or like their desert island song. And by the end, based on understanding their choosing of these music tastes, I have to guess what their life anthem is at the end. So it's a fun show.
Well, and there's like a little bet, a little wager. I was watching the Rico Nasty one this morning.
Yeah, so if I guess it right, that they have to invite someone else on the show. So Rico Nasty, I guessed it right. She invited Eric Andre onto the show next time. We haven't had him yet, but that's...
Okay, 2 quick questions before we move to the OPP section. Are you down with OPP?
You know me.
Okay, great. What do you want to leave everyone with? What do you want people to know?
I would hope that everyone here knows that whatever it is that you feel your light is within you, not to allow anyone to dim it, but that includes yourself. Don't allow yourself to dim your light. The only thing that you are put here to do is to shine that light on as many people as possible. So hopefully this inspires you to do that to one person.
Oh, and so now that you have your own show, what is the next big dream?
The next big dream, I'm still working on it. I'm still thinking it.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Make some noise for Jeremy Hecht from Uproxx. And I am never going to have coffee at the Keurig and see you and walk away the same way again. I'll be like walking into my new reality. I love it.
There we go. No, and thank you so much. Make some noise for FYI and Julie for putting on this event too.
Thanks for listening to the Culture Fires podcast. Make sure to download the FYI app, available now in the App Store and Google Play. Check out this episode's notes for a project link to this Culture Fires event, including a look at more projects from the FYI community. This episode's Culture Fires event was produced by FYI co-founder will.i.am, Amina Mohammed, Emily Choi, Frankie Sandoval, Juliana Rodriguez, Jafet Chavez, Julie Pilot, Lily Cam, Marcus Nielsen Calling, Ronial Madlani, Sean Kantrowitz, Shania Jafari, Taylor Wang, the FYI product team, and of course the FYI community. The podcast is edited by Rob Van Vranken. Make sure to subscribe to Culture Fires wherever you get your podcasts so that you never miss an episode. Learn more about FYI by visiting fyi.fyi.